And today I want to address this topic by providing you with a new perspective. I want us to take one more step further. You know that many times on the channel I talk about energy, and this is one of those situations where I want to show you that your internal management will reflect on the outside. I guarantee it. But first I have to understand, let's see, I often find myself in that situation, right? This person is ignoring me. Maybe out of nowhere, one day they stop talking to me, or maybe they are deliberately wants to manipulate me, or is testing me, wants to know my limits, or has simply lost interest. But usually the person indeed, sometimes we don't know to what extent they are aware that this will hurt us. And we want to believe somewhat naively, perhaps to avoid feeling the rejection so intensely, which is experienced in a very uncomfortable way, right? We sometimes want to cling to the idea that maybe the person is not aware, that this hurts us, but in most cases they are indeed aware. That is to say, that person knows it will upset you, knows they are doing something that will probably cause you harm. However, we tend to believe that the magnitude of the harm merely depends on how much this person matters to us. And we gauge the feeling there when in reality it goes much further. The magnitude of the harm often goes far back in our life, because when someone truly makes us feel rejected, our mind by itself, when calibrating certain experiences, works like a kind of computer that searches for files. That is to say, suddenly someone rejects me and that makes me feel bad, right? And I break down. And when I break down, I get the idea that, well, many times without realizing it, a very negative discourse begins, in which it's like, oh my, it always goes wrong for me. In the end, why do I even get my hopes up? I meet someone and I know that in the end, it's going to go wrong. And your mind, instead of picking you up and encouraging you and making you see that this person is not that relevant, that this doesn't speak about you, that it might merely speak about them and their circumstances that might not even have anything to do with you. No. What it will do is want to prove you right, and then it will search. And when we talk about rejection, the mind searches even in the deepest parts. That is to say, you will somehow, so to speak, come into contact, perhaps even with childhood wounds. We've heard about childhood wounds, moments when you felt rejected. And the deeper the wound, or the more times you have felt that way in that situation, this is going to affect you to a greater extent. That is to say, at that moment you might really think, wow, I really like Pepito or Julita, because otherwise I wouldn't be feeling so bad about this person. It wouldn't be affecting me so much. But if you think about it, maybe just a little before the rejection, you didn't feel that much. Why? Because, I repeat, this doesn't speak to the magnitude of the feeling. Let's see, there are different cases. Obviously, if you have a relationship that's really beautiful with someone you've shared a lot, there's a lot of feeling, this person provides you support, is a pillar in your life, and they leave you. It's not merely because you come into contact with your wound, with rejection. No, there's more here, right? But many times we are not in such situations, meaning the person hasn't contributed that much to our life. We haven't shared that much, but we feel terrible. I mean, the situation really overwhelms us, and we believe that, right? We believe, I feel so much for this person, because otherwise I wouldn't be handling it so poorly. I wouldn't be desperate for this person to come back, thinking about what I can do, right? If I look for them, if I insist, I need to understand, right? And also, usually when we experience rejection, it's one of the few situations where most people assume the blame, right? There are many things in life, we even have the blame. But we don't want to assume it. It's like at work, a mistake, let the person next to you handle it, right? But no, when we experience rejection, it's a situation where often it doesn't depend on anything we've done. We haven't done anything wrong. We haven't offended the person. We haven't said anything inappropriate. It's not that we're not attractive or fantastic. It's just that maybe, I don't know, as I say, this person is manipulative, or this person was involved in another story that has resurfaced, or this person is not trying, or this person, 100,000 hypotheses that don't speak to our worth, but there we do assume the burden of guilt, and then it gets mixed up. We fall apart, we feel really bad, and we come into contact with this and become very destabilized. Okay, so I explain all this to you, and I want you to understand all this clearly. Because when we are in this situation, it is a wonderful moment for personal growth and, as I mentioned at the beginning, to verify what I have often talked to you about, which is that an internal change will inevitably also reflect in an external change and will have an impact on the other person. And having said that, how are we going to handle the situation this time? Unlike perhaps other times when you might have found yourself in this same predicament. The first thing, understanding, as I mentioned at the beginning, that this person is aware, meaning they are not ignoring you out of dismissal. You see, nothing serious has happened to them. You don't need to ask for explanations, especially because in many cases, this person will not give you sincere explanations. Obviously, a person who handles a situation by suddenly ignoring you is either showing us that they are not the most emotionally mature person, or they are not the person whose way of facing things is to be straightforward, to be sincere, and say what's going on, right? Or it could be that 1,000 things are happening. That is to say, we might also be dealing with someone who is simply overwhelmed by their own feelings, right? I'm not saying you should cling to this idea, okay? Mind you, I don't like to foster hope in that regard, but it happens, it happens. There are times, especially it happens more to men than to women, that sometimes even at the moment they come into contact, well, with a vulnerability, with a feeling that they are getting more involved. They fear for their freedom or don't feel comfortable with all this, and they make a retreat. That is, there can be many reasons, but sometimes the person is either not even fully aware of what's happening to them or obviously doesn't want to communicate it to you. Because if they wanted to communicate it to you, they would have told you. In other words, they had the option. They have decided freely to ignore you, to stop communicating with you when they could have chosen, like a mature person, to send you a message explaining a bit why they don't want to, right? So when someone doesn't want to, I shouldn't go asking what's wrong, nor should I try to find out what's happening. And above all, I shouldn't fill my head, as I said before, with illusions like, hey, maybe they haven't realized, maybe they're waiting for me to contact them, maybe they want me to insist. No, don't insist, really. Don't ask and don't deceive yourself with the idea that you need closure. You understand that this person is acting by choice, that silence also conveys a message, which is at this moment, I want to take distance, or I don't know if later I want to leave this, be here. But now my way of handling it has to be like, okay, I don't know what your reasons are, but I do know that you don't want to be in communication. And I'm not going to force communication. But I'm also not going to burden myself with excessive responsibility. I mean, I'm not going to burden myself with guilt because I know that it's very likely it has nothing to do with what I've done. I'm not going to twist my head about what I can do to make you reconsider the situation, much less am I going to go looking for you. Because there it speaks to my value, that is, everyone represents themselves with their actions. If this person stops communicating with you just like that, even though you might think that this action speaks about you, in the face of rejection, like, oh my, I'm so unlovable that this person didn't even bother. No, it doesn't speak about you. It speaks about that person. In any case, it speaks about them being rude, about not having emotional tools or emotional maturity, or that they have bad intentions, or that they don't know how to manage their emotions. In short, 100,000 things. But it doesn't speak about you. This action doesn't diminish you. You are representing that person. However, from now on, how you act and how you handle the situation does speak about you. And we are not going to put ourselves in a bad situation because we don't need to. Once I am aware that I am not going to go looking for anyone because it is not my responsibility, because I don't have to do it, and because I don't intend to do it, I am not even joking going to look for someone who is behaving like this, because it would be, among other things, rewarding behavior that is not appropriate and is not a behavior I want in my life. The next thing I am going to do is pay close attention to my internal dialogue. Because we tend to, well, since it's inside my head, right? What does it matter? Oh, come on. What a queen, whatever. No, let's put things in order. Because in that moment of rejection, as I say, we are going to come into contact with memories, with situations, with insecurities that we never want to fully face, right? Or that we don't fully confront and we have them there, well, in that chest of the mind, right? So I'm going to pay attention to my internal dialogue and, if necessary, take paper and pen and jot down a bit to give some order, to organize a little what's going on there. Great. We're okay. Right now, I feel very anxious. It's going to be one of the emotions that will probably overwhelm you. That anxiety, which I somewhat confuse with panic, leads me to believe that I quickly need to take some action, whatever it may be, to stop feeling the way I am feeling. So, as I say, my brain is going to think 100,000 ideas like I can contact this person with such an excuse, or I have the right to ask them what's wrong, or I'm going to pretend nothing is happening, and I'm going to, 100,000 ideas that will occur to us that are actually seeking for us to act out of panic. Once we say, we realize that we have received this flow of ideas and we negotiate with ourselves by saying, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I don't feel like it, then really another type of ideas will come. Let's say that we will go deeper there and we have to pay attention to what we are telling ourselves. If we are giving ourselves a speech of, once again, we have failed. It reminds me of when that person suddenly disappeared, or this emotion reminds me of how I felt at that moment in my life. Organize, and above all, realize to what extent those ideas that probably come to you are heavily tinged with pessimism and with little realism. Why? Because they are like a bias in your life, right? It's as if suddenly you focused all your attention only on those moments when things didn't go as you expected. And here we have to debate with ourselves, that is, offer a counter idea, right? Okay? Yes. I remember that day when this person, and what happens when on such an occasion, a person, even if it was unrequited, they noticed me and had those nice feelings. Or what happens when I met that other person and I did have a nice relationship and they offered me a partnership that I liked. Or what about that day I went out and met someone unexpectedly? That is, let's broaden the perspective. Let's broaden the perspective and understand that what we're telling ourselves right now isn't real, and that we have to confront those ideas and remind ourselves more than ever. Hey, no. I'm not going to allow just anyone to come and destabilize and shake my reality, the concept I have of myself. I have a good concept of myself. I know who I am. I know my worth. And if you have problems acting properly, I'm not going to let that make me doubt myself. You don't deserve for just anyone to come and take advantage of you. But for that, we need to put a little order in that chaotic chest we all have. Because everyone, not just you, has been rejected at some point, has been turned down, has been made to feel unloved, has been made to feel unattractive, has been made to feel unworthy, has been made to not understand why. It can't be that we don't understand why that person seemed interested and then wasn't. At some point, we've all found ourselves in this situation. And if not, congratulations. What are you doing here watching videos? Just kidding. What I mean is that we need to realize that this situation shouldn't put you in a state of alert and crisis because it's something that happens. But you need to be able to know how to handle it. Why? Because instead of being completely destabilized, feeling terrible, maybe taking action and actually emanating that energy that will burst from you like, oh my gosh, no, 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 no. That anxious energy of please contact me. Are you capable of mastering all that? Of staying calm and truly reaffirming yourself and saying, I don't care at all? Whether you write to me again or not, because I love myself, I know I'm worth it, and I will keep my center stable. I remain calm, I am zen, I am fine, I am relaxed. You will not destabilize me, I can handle this, I will manage this. If you manage in that adversity, which is a complicated moment, to truly master yourself and your energy, you will have a quite concrete result. In most cases, if not all, if you do this well, if you manage yourself, if you analyze yourself, if you calm down, if you maintain your composure, if you continue with your life, the better you can handle this, the sooner. This person will be the one to contact you again, truly. That relaxed energy, that energy of, hey, if you want to leave, well, nothing. I'm not going to go looking for you, makes people come back to you. Truly. Try it and you'll see that I'm not deceiving you or selling you smoke, but that this works. But it's not easy. That is to say, controlling our own mind, controlling our emotions, and controlling the energy we emit is complicated. It requires first, obviously, becoming aware, because until I become aware of all this, I cannot influence it. It's impossible. And once I become aware, when I pay attention to my internal dialogue, to how I feel, when I convince myself, when I learn that I can indeed govern, that my thoughts are what govern my emotions, and in the end, I can work to govern myself, to prove to myself that I can. When I master all this, the results are truly incredible. So, it's about having, over time, the more you practice it, you eventually develop a confidence within yourself, right? And in the end, you are absolutely clear that you are not going to follow anyone. And this doesn't mean that you are going to feel bad about it, right? So step back. That same person who distances themselves, when you maintain that energy, will you keep attracting and they come back? Truly, in most cases, try it and in not too much time. You hear from the person again. Here, I won't delve into another aspect that would indeed be important, which is why this person acted the way they did and whether you are truly interested in maintaining a connection with this person or moving forward with them. That's another topic. There are many videos on the channel about this. Maybe you should give it some thought. What I want here is for you to experiment with how, in the end, in a situation where you think there's nothing you can do, and if there is something to do, you have to take action, right? On the physical level, how to realize that it is much more important, much more effective, and much more powerful to understand that what I manage internally will indeed influence the outside. And this situation is a good one to prove it. Well, I hope this video is useful to you, that you put it into practice, and that you liked it. If that's the case and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, of course, I invite you to do so and hit the bell, because I would love for us to see each other again very soon. And until then, as always, I send you a big kiss.